Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the time zone, and very warm welcome to the webinar today on cloud security platform, how to choose one, a perspective from the trenches. My name is Asim, I'm founder and CEO of Cloud Optics. And before we begin, a little bit of housekeeping items here. Questions, to ask a question, please click on the question button on your screen. For presentation slides, we'll be sending you over on the email for all the attendees, and you can also download our white paper on this cloud security platform. And feedback, it's very important for the feedback. Please do not forget to leave the feedback, how the session was and how you liked it. We'd be very interested to hear your views. And now moving on to today's speaker. I'm honored to welcome Amol Gupte today, who's a tech evangelist, advisor, mentor, and coach. And Amol is a passionate technology leader advising new age disruptors globally. He has spent more than 40 years in Accenture in senior leadership roles, and his interests include cybersecurity, RPA, IoT, AI, and blockchain. Amol has a master's degree from Michigan Tech University and MBA in marketing management. So a very warm welcome to everybody, and over to you, Amol.
Thank you, Asim, for the kind introduction. Good morning again to all of you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from people who have joined across the world. I thought this was an interesting topic to give my perspective on the cloud security platform. Having seen a number of products, services, businesses, having been on both sides of the fence, a service provider as well as a receiver of services, a customer and a vendor, I thought it'll be good to share some of my views on a cloud security platform. So if you look at the slide in front of you, typically there are three kinds of drivers that are that you would consider in a cloud security platform. So there are obviously business drivers, and these include moving to a digital enterprise. There is a severe shortage of cybersecurity skills. There are customer expectations that you need to have a robust security platform, and there are obviously insider threats to deal with. There are risk-based drivers from the other side, so that you have an ongoing overhang of your regulators breathing down your neck on compliance. There are third-party risks, and there are reputational risks to your brand and to your business, and you don't want to be falling to those reputation risks or any risk for that matter from government and regulatory agencies. And there are technical drivers, considerations being cloud computing, your DevOps, hybrid data center. So these are drivers, and a cloud security platform needs to take cognizance of all these three drivers that are today in front of us. I'm going to move to the next slide. So if you look at the market today, if you look at the environment around you, you find a mix of a lot of, it's a mixed bag of nuts. There's Splunk, there's CASB, there's CIS benchmark, it's just a crowded place with various different offerings. Some of these are manual, a lot of these are siloed, and it actually poses for the chief security officer or a CISO a plethora of choices, but not a very clear and concise black and white solution. And that's actually a reflection of where we are today in the environment, where cloud security is being lesser understood. It is being confused by a lot of people, and hence there is no clear way forward that actually emerges, right? What I would be interested in knowing where you are in the journey for a cloud security platform. And if you answer the poll, which is going by the side, that will be really helpful. If you look at the next slide, which is economics of security and compliance, and here's a study which is done by Ponemon Institute of Research, which is a very reputed organization. And what they have found is that the cost of compliance is humongously high, to a level of about $25 million if you do absolutely no audit. So there is no audit frequency. It rises marginally if there is about 1 or 2 audits in a year. And the reason why it rises marginally is because these tend to be typically random, and hence you actually spend a little more effort and hence dollars for managing that audit. But then if you have a very disciplined approach of regulatory audits, maybe 3 to 5 or more than 5, your cost of security and compliance drastically comes down. So this is a very important fact and a data point that you must consider today. And that's there's little table there which actually gives a breakdown of the average cost for non-compliance. So your business disruption could be as much as $5 million. Your revenue loss could be $4 million. So you're talking of anywhere upwards of $2 million to about $5 million on each of those components. Moving on, what should a cloud security platform typically be? What it should be, what it should not be. So I think there are 2 basic points, and there could be many others. I think the 2 which clearly stand out is the platform should provide you a clear visibility and monitor cloud security across cloud service providers. And you know there are a number of cloud service providers today, right from AWS to Azure and several others. But it should provide you a clear visibility and monitoring of your cloud security. And then it should not be a provisioning, but an endpoint protection or performance monitoring solution, right? So not merely a provision, but it should be a protection and monitoring, a performance monitoring tool. And these are the 2, I would say, basic considerations that you should look at in a cloud security platform. And these are really 2 overarching ones. If you look at the scope and the platform focus areas for a cloud security platform, I think there are 2 clearly over here. One is a SaaS-based focus, typically a CASB, which is a broker model, or an infrastructure as a service focus, which is more of posture-related assessments that you keep doing on an ongoing basis. If you look at some of the requirements that are key to the platform, the platform requirements are, there are a couple of ones which are mentioned here again, which are at a high level. And again, these are based on my experience, but you know, there could be others you want to consider as well in the mix. One is actionable audit. So the cloud security platform should clearly provide you the visibility, the discovery of risks and outcomes to risk reduction. It should provide you an ability of compliance monitoring. And I think this is a key point where I find in the market that there are not many providers who actually do a package or a standard-based compliance. So if you talk about very common compliance standards like 27001 or PCI, SACS, SOX, SAS, HIPAA. So those are compliance monitoring across each of those standards. It should provide you with threat prioritization, which is contextualization of vulnerabilities and prioritization of those vulnerabilities. And again, it's a mixed bag over here because not all of the offerings which are available in the market do that very well. The next one is DevSecOps, continuous automated security monitoring. And again, there is a very small percent or probably just 1 or 2 which actually do this very well. And I'll come to some of the recommendations and some of the products which are available. If you look at security automation, automated remediation and enforcement is clearly one of the requirements you should put down when you're looking for a cloud security platform. These days we do hear a lot about AI and machine learning. Those are futuristic, but again, if there is anybody who's offering you AI, analytics, machine learning, you should look at putting down some of those relevant things as requirements into the platform, or at least a roadmap that a service provider gives you saying we are building an AI into this platform or we are doing some machine learning, because these are things which will actually add a lot of value and help you in the long run, though it may not be significant now, but I think going forward, I think that's definitely something you should consider. Sorry, I just skipped 2 slides. Let me go to the one. Okay. If you look at some of the implementation considerations, again, there are 2 the world is divided into two. One is the SaaS, software as a service implementation considerations, and there is on-prem. And a lot of companies have a choice of one over the other. More overarching are things like data security. So if you look at a SaaS model, you will have clients or customers who are worried about what is the data flowing to third parties today? What is the security of the third party, and hence why should I procure or subscribe to a SaaS model? You could have issues with licensing. For example, you could have limitations on licensing. You may not either too few, or you may have a tiered licensing model which does not work for you. The vendor might be able to push through a bulk licensing, so minimum like 100 or 1,000, and that may not work for you because you're a small business or a large business. So it depends upon how the licensing is configured on a SaaS model. And then you have specific customization requirements, which could be either a limitation or something that you want to consider in a SaaS model. If you look at an on-prem consideration for implementation, you should be worried about licensing flexibility. While as SaaS could be restrictive, you could have either limitations or exclusive on an on-prem model. On-prem really works well. I've seen where customers are worried about what third-party access do people have because they have a SaaS model, and hence a lot of companies and clients say, well, we prefer an on-prem model. And again, the choice over here with companies who provide both is quite limited. So you really have to look for a vendor who says, well, I don't care if you use a SaaS model or an on-prem model because my software or my tool or my platform works with both. And I think there are, again, a limited choice, as I said, with who do both. Each has its own pros and cons. Support, if you have an on-prem platform deployment, you need to be worried about how will the upgrade process work? How is the support model of the company or the tool? Is it too arduous? It is cumbersome? Is it what frequency you're doing an upgrade? And then you have customizations. How will it work with your existing investments? Obviously, you've made investments over the last many years, and you don't want to throw those investments down the tube. So you got to be worried about how will they work with the existing investments and not work in isolation. And then there could be any other specific considerations you may want to consider for customizations on an on-prem model. You look at other considerations you may want to think about. One is the most important. All of these are technology related. So you will need to look at what is the service coverage depth, for example, whether it does compliance monitoring very effectively. A lot of times I've seen clients also do a lot of third-party integrations, and you should be thinking about how does the product or the tool or the platform do those third-party integrations in your particular case, because you may have a mix of technologies and platform that does not lend itself very easily to do third-party integrations. You need to be seeing about compliance control coverage. How does that work? And if there are any usage restrictions on the platform itself. And there could be, again, many others, but I think these 6 are kind of the top ones which you should consider when you're about to make a decision on a cloud security platform. Benefits, I think clearly the benefits are such that you should be looking at security management, automation, and standardization. I think those are the benefits that you should definitely get out of the platform. You need to have a clear infrastructure and network visibility out of the platform that you deploy. At the end of the day, you do not want a tool for the sake of it which doesn't do anything extra, but things like cost optimization, network visibility, your scaling along with the cloud usage, which is very important. A lot of times tools may not be able to scale as you scale your network and grow your enterprise. Your cloud configuration management and monitoring aspects of it, and simplification of your cloud configuration across different providers, because more and more we are finding that companies don't use one, but they use several cloud providers. And how does the tool or the platforms scale across laterally and horizontally as across the different cloud providers. Typical platform use cases. I have seen over here could be one is asset discovery. So the cloud security platform should be able to do an asset discovery of your users, machines, storage, and network elements. Insider threat, does it leverage cloud to prevent insider threats? Again, that's a very important use cases. Uh, Configuration evaluation due to a periodic cloud service configuration check. Uh, you know, the most important use case over here, which are for me, is about compliance monitoring. And this is real-time compliance monitoring to certain industry standards like 27001, uh, HIPAA, uh, SOX, and so many others. And each one of these standards has typically an infrastructure component. So if you say ISO 27001, the standard has certain level of infrastructure requirements for it to be compliant to 27001. Typically, every standard has IT controls and non-IT controls. The platform which we're talking over here typically will do only IT infrastructure, because a lot of things outside the purview of IT, for example, HR, finance, will still be required to be done manually. But does the cloud security platform give you a real-time view today if you're compliant to a typical standard? And because while you may think that you are compliant, the platform does the platform tell you in real time that you've lost your compliance, and why, and what are the reasons you've lost it, and how do you fix it? And those kind of tools are the need of the day today. You also need the ability to do cost optimization. I've seen a lot of deployments where the cloud sprawl, as we call it today, has become so immense and wide that people have lost, companies have lost count of the amount of storage or the amount of infrastructure they have procured at a given point in time, thinking they will need to utilize all parts of it, only to realize years later that more than 50% of the cloud assets or infrastructure assets are underutilized or not utilized. So the cloud platform, if it tells you areas or pockets of optimization which will bring you cost recovery, I think that's a very important benefit of the platform. Visibility and control into the entire cloud estate. It's not only isolated visibility into certain parts of the infrastructure, but what we are talking about is visibility across the cloud estate, across different providers. And again, this provides you with the comfort that the tool that you have chosen actually is doing the work of cost optimization, compliance, threats, configuration, evaluation. And so while you are at a point of selection or decision making, do look at all the use cases or a majority of the use cases that need to be satisfied with this platform. If you look at some of the commonly available platforms that you have today, so you have SaaS focused platforms, as I said earlier, and infrastructure as a service focused. The top ones obviously are the names over there. On the SaaS focus, you have the Cisco's, the McAfee's, Symantec, Microsoft. On the IaaS focus, you obviously have Evident, Dome, and Cloud Optics. And I think where we are is in terms of a lot of these can do some of the jobs. I've rarely come across a platform which actually does a lot of the use cases I spoke earlier in slides, in the earlier slides. With that, we have come to questions from the audience, if there are any.
Yeah, hi. We have a question from audience. First question is, what would be typical installation time time for on-prem solutions?
Right. Okay. So let me answer that. So it really varies by the type of solution you choose. I know with some solutions it could be weeks and months. With with the type of solutions I have seen coming in the market, and typically I would like to take the mention of Cloud Optics over here. The solution timelines for on-prem could be quite compressed from literally days. We're talking about days to under a week, where you can get this up and running.
Right. Thanks a lot, Amol. I don't see any more questions from the audience. With that, if there are no more questions, thanks a lot. Appreciate for your time, Amol, and everybody else. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. I hope this was useful to all, and you use some of these pointers in your day-to-day work and in your decision-making process. Thank you for the opportunity, Asim. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot.